Hi, Peter. So lovely to see you today.
Hi, how's it going?
Really good, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I was just wondering if you could briefly describe who you are, your role, and a bit about your background, please.
Sure. A little bit non-traditional over here. You might see my fluoro. I actually work on mine sites at the moment. Been doing about 16 years of mining, but came from building furniture and doing demolition and all sorts of stuff in the eastern states, and ended up in mining in Western Australia in the end. Um, I started in the drilling category. So I was a camp boss and a drilling offsider, and then I went through to admin and project coordinator, and I now sit in a global mining company. And my role in this space is to put tablets and apps in the hands of the blue collar frontline workforce and translate from digital to normal people in plain English, and help regular people who don't normally have access to technology. And certainly, it's new to be expected to use it at work. And I help, get them to lean into it and train them up on things like that. But yeah, my background is a really weird and wonderful one where I actually came off the tools myself. And I didn't finish school. I didn't go to uni. I'm neurodiverse myself. I've got some kinks. So, quirks, I should say. And it's really fun to now be on the digital side and helping other people lean into it, because I naturally did. I was like, oh, this is really useful. I found stuff that, a lot of problem solving. Oh, maybe it can do this thing because I hate doing this thing twice. And so I would self teach all the way through. And then those skills are now what I use to help people like lean into digital and embrace stuff that might be easier, smarter, faster, or help find the shiny objects in the fact that they've got to use technology and there's plenty of resistance and stuff to get through. So that's what I do now.
Awesome. It's so
Mm.
nice that you get to give back as well and that you enjoy that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I've got, outside of the work I'm doing with this company, I had my own business doing the consulting side for smaller trade businesses. And that was a much smaller scale, and you could affect change a lot easier in a smaller business. And did the same thing there, and it was brilliant. Just watching the evolution of somebody going, I hate mobile phones, to I run my whole business on the mobile phone and I don't even have to sit at a computer. And so it's nice to watch that shift and just see them sort of tip over that edge and go, oh no, tech's actually good, you know? So I love it.
Yeah, definitely. To get that sense of achievement and see that on someone's face must be awesome. So what led you, I suppose we might have touched on this question, what led you to focus on neurodiversity in the workplace?
It's sort of personal because I've got ADHD, and I've got a bit of a reading disability, and I didn't finish school, and, I didn't come from the traditional background. That's part of it. And then it's kind of evolved in the last few years, specifically from trying to help people utilize technology or start using it because they have to at work, or teach them this one tip or trick that'll help them do something, faster. And realizing that, oh, this isn't just logic for everybody. Because I just leaned in and it made sense to my brain, and I was really lucky for that. But they didn't. Like, some of this stuff doesn't land the same way I would think it would land. So over the last few years, I've sort of gone, how the thing does the thing. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, because it just does the thing. And they're like, no, I don't get it. And then I realized like how many different learning styles there were, and how certain brains will lean into it and others won't. And it comes from age, it comes from trade backgrounds, it comes from your literally the brain you have and the way it's wired, as to whether your kids have been doing the remote for the TV for the last 10 years and you've just sort of bailed out on tech. All of these things matter. And if you don't ask the right questions or give people space to figure out what type of learner that they are going to be, you can't actually help them learn it in a language that suits them. So I kind of got down to teaching myself to translate. I say I translate from nerd to normal people because it's fun to say. But it's really about finding terminology in plain English that'll land, or painting a picture in their world or their role, or something that makes sense for them, so they can then lean into whatever that digital solution might be. But they understand what it is and the why, and they
Yeah,
need the why. you know. So I kind of got stuck into playing translator and finding ways to do it, and then meeting people that would openly now tell me, and years ago never say, oh, I'm ADHD, oh, I've got dyslexia. Now they just say it like, oh, I want a cup of coffee. But in years gone by, they would hide that stuff and shy away from it and don't want to be seen to not know the thing. So the younger crew are quite more open about it, and with the sort of older crew that I play with, you kind of eke it out of them gently and just go, oh, you know, do you struggle with like typing? And they go, yeah, no, nah. What about handwriting? Oh, no, no, no. Okay, so you don't like handwriting or typing at all? And they're like, no. Nah. I'm like, so not a fan of reading and writing? No. Nah. Okay, cool. That tells me enough. And you don't have to then show them up for something, because they're super smart people who know plenty of stuff about other things. They just aren't naturally digital. And so, you know, you can work with them that way. And I found it fascinating, and neurodiversity became a thing for me, I guess. And I didn't really realize that it was happening until probably about a year ago, that I was really into this. And I really do care. Like, I'm super passionate about people getting the appropriate opportunity to learn, and the appropriate amount of time to learn something.
Yeah, definitely. I think reasonable adjustment's so important these days, in particular, if we want people to succeed with their own skill set, and then adding on this digital complexity.
Yeah. And you can't treat them all the same. You know, because all of the factors I mentioned, like age and schooling and neurodiversity and all these things, they all change the parameters on how long you need to train that person for, how you'll go about training them, what's going to land, whether it's repetitive muscle memory type stuff or painting a picture instead of using technical terms, use some, you know, more funny ones and scenarios, whatever it is, you need to actually take the time for that. And so you've got to be a little bit flexible and a little bit individual about it. And we like to put one solid brush and go, well, here's the training pack for this thing, and that's for everybody. Oh, yeah, but is it going to land, you know?
Yeah, I love that. What are some examples of inclusive training methods you've used or seen to accommodate various learning styles or abilities?
I think there's some regular culprits, like training room, linear classroom style stuff, you know, up the front with death by PowerPoint. Those ones will land for a certain percentage of the room. Others who have a shorter attention span will not survive very long in that room. Then we play videos in the room, in a room full of people playing videos is one way. Preferably, I like bite-sized videos that you can watch in your own time. So I utilize micro-learning, basically. So short videos, bite-sized pieces, easily accessible. Just send out links to people so they can self-paced learn, they can self-service. Sometimes people don't like to be in a room full of other people, and they don't want to be seen to be the person that doesn't know, so they say nothing. And if everybody in a room doesn't know the thing, but nobody's got the courage to ask, then you leave the room still not knowing something. Whereas if you can have some one-on-one support with people and then utilize, say, micro-learning and digital content after it, or be issued it beforehand and after it, I think a combination works for most people, so that you've got a bit of everything. There is no problem with PowerPoint presentations and stuff, provided it's engaging enough to keep you honest. But we still do pen and paper quizzes and things as well, which is tactile and helpful, like especially for blue collar who like to learn by hand and by doing. So when I'm training with the tablets and stuff, you're actually in the room and you're on your tablet doing it yourself. And I train from the front of the room. So if I am going to do the classroom style thing, I have my screen shared, just do a Teams meeting and share the screen onto the big screen, but they have to go and do the thing and keep up and speak up if they miss a step or they're not on the same page as everybody else. And the active doing has been the most effective. And then having supporting content has been the thing that I think the biggest gap I've been able to fill is that in the company that I'm working with, they don't have any content. I thought I'd be able to go and reach into the bag of tricks that this company has and pull out some content that's useful to back up what I was doing. it wasn't there. So I started doing screen recordings and short videos and putting them on a SharePoint and sending out links. And that's been helpful to people who prefer to learn privately. So you see that some people will be the noisy person in the room who asks all the questions, super courageous and outgoing. Someone else will be quietly in the background, just wishing this whole thing would be over soon because they have to be there. I prefer one-on-one training. I prefer having a personal engagement with people, figuring out who they are, how they learn, doing the tactile, showing them videos, giving them links, showing them the value of, the benefits, the why. And then they walk out the door feeling like fully cared for and catered to as well. It's definitely not a way to do it in bulk. You can't scale that very well. But it's highly effective. And I've got the proof in the pudding of people going out from hating it, didn't want to be there, was almost semi-aggressive in the room, going, no, I don't like the thing. And they would be walking out going, oh my God, thanks so much. That's amazing. I had no idea this had all these things in it and there's stuff there for me and blah, blah, blah. And so you just see this switch from kind of like, to, oh, and that'll do, that's nice. Then they go and get curious and start looking into stuff, which I love. So.
That's so good. And ultimately, as you said, you want the knowledge to actually land. So
yeah,
to
there's
do it.
there's absolutely no point. If I stood in front of a room just to be the person who can use the words and speak the stuff, if I use all my technical knowledge and all my technical terms and I speak very well and I've got a huge vocabulary, then it's like having two versions of done, right? If you trained a room full of people and class that is done, then that's one version of done. Or you train a room full of people, but they have to have learned it. If they have to learn it, then you're done. So my version of done is they need to have learned a thing, which means I don't need to have a good vocabulary. I need to be a very good translator. I need to be able to switch up, and the words I choose to use need to be for them, not to prove that I'm smart or not, or that I know the thing or not. That'll be apparent because I'm the trainer and they're the trainee. That's not the problem. The problem is, how do I say this in a way that it lands? Otherwise, I'm wasting time and oxygen, and so are they. Let's make this time count. We only get one shot. I only get one shot with a person for, say, 3 hours, and they need to walk out more digitally literate and understand, say, work management or safety. Well, then that needs to be all about them, not about me. So my version of done is actually that they learned something, which is a bit different.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So the next question I have, how do you see or foresee technology evolving to better assist individuals with neurodiverse conditions in the workplace?
I think we've done a really good job for kicking it off. We've now got mobile devices and tablets, and we've got VR headsets. Like, if that doesn't blow your mind already, I don't know, about 10 years ago, the idea of a virtual reality was nuts, I think spacing it back into neurodiversity is the more you can give a person the freedom to learn and do in their own space and time, they can cater to their own neurodiversity. Like, I've got a crazy brain. I've got a hyper brain. I'm an artist in my spare time. I've been that for 25 years. That's when I let it off the leash and let it go nuts. And at work, I try and use, all the good bits for all the good reasons. But I don't learn by reading 5-page paragraph after paragraph. I learn I'll give you 3 minutes of my time in a video, no worries, but I'm not trying to put my reading disability through, and my brain through this thing of trying to read paragraph after paragraph. So if you give me an opportunity to learn in my own space, in my own time, my own way, then we're winning. So I feel like technology, anything in the technology space that does that, whether it be a library full of PCs, although that is still a room full of people if everybody goes at the same time, through to tablets and mobile phones and giving people headphones and stuff to use, or creating, rooms and spaces with the technology to go and learn it privately. I feel like anything in that space is the right way to go, because we are not all made the same. Our brains we're not wired the same way. We don't fire off on the same cylinders. Some people only learn in a classroom situation with someone up the front, with the PowerPoint, blah, blah, blah. Others will only learn in private. Or if you've got English second language, or you've got something in the really tricky neurodiversity stuff or sensory overloads or anything like that, then the privacy thing and the self-paced and self-service side is critical. So I'm a fan of a good combination of all. So if you can get a one-on-one session, you can have classroom sessions, you can have backup content, you can have a self-service library, you can have a troubleshooting and FAQs thing. I'm a fan of combining all of them. I don't think there's a silver bullet for anything. I don't think you can use just one. We humans are too to just have one blanket rule and one blanket solution. But if you're smart about it and you understand the daily struggle of the workforce and that everybody is a bit different and they need a chance to learn, then if you can facilitate a few different ways and give people choice, then it doesn't feel so forced. I think it wins on a whole bunch of levels, including psychosocial. So
yeah, and I think you touched on it before, is that the technology needs to be there to help them, or to make it needs to be easy to use the technology.
Yeah, and it's friend not foe. Framing up technology as your friend, as the assistance, as a benefit, as a tool, as a weapon, right? As a weapon to combat this technical age. If you frame it up the right way, it's kind of like a marketing episode, right? Hey, you have to use a tablet at work. Oh God, that didn't go down well. Hey, we're giving tablets to everybody so you can do this other stuff and you can get access to all these things. And here you can do this for yourself and that for yourself. And by the way, you can do your work on it. Oh, okay. Well, hang on. That was all about me. And then I've got to do the work thing. I'm not having it jammed down my throat or forced into my hand. And here's some technology I hope you can catch. Oh, yeah, by the way, we're going to get grumpy at when you don't know how to do the thing. Oh, but we didn't train you to do it. Oh, crap. So I feel like that's the bit that we need to sort of we need to make it the perk and the benefit. There's guys out there that I've had that they are near on, if not actually illiterate, because they're a little older. They've come off out of school early because school sucked and they weren't any good at it. And so they went into a trade and they were good at that. They got the hands-on stuff. They've been doing that for years. They'll fix anything, know anything, do anything. They're super talented, knowledgeable humans. And then technology comes along and they're like, because that means you've got to type, you've got to write, you've got to read. And they've avoided that quite nicely for a good period of time, because it wasn't their strength. If you frame up the technology, mobile device or whatever it is, and you teach them that it can read out loud to you and you can voice type, all of a sudden that thing is the best thing ever, because now you don't have to be able to read and write. You can actually use technology to combat your LLND stuff. You can use it as your friend, not foe. So, but somebody has to care enough to find out that you can't and that you need, that's the tip and trick that you need, right? And that's the one that's going to matter to you. So you lead with that. Here's how to solve this immediate problem. Quick, sweet, awesome. Okay, now let's have a look at learning the thing, because they're in a better frame of mind for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a tricky one.
That's amazing. And I guess that is one of the positives, is that now with technology, as you say, the question could be read out to them, even if they're not with that trainer. So yeah, that is pretty cool. Just looking at the next question here. So what specific strategies have you found most effective in supporting individuals with neurodiversity? And can you give a practical example? I guess that reading to voice to text would be one of those.
Yeah, and it is a really good one. I think for me, the strategy has been, there isn't one solution. Nothing in and of itself solves anything. You need the combination of things. So when I've done classroom training sessions, somebody always hangs out at the end to ask a few more questions. That one-on-one time has been critical. Then they've gone and shared that knowledge with the team. Some of the best things ever happen straight after a meeting or a training session. And you're like, darn, should have put that in the room. But classroom training sessions, for me, the best value, the biggest benefit has been the one-on-one time. Because this is such an interesting space with so much diversity in the people, but diversity in the technology and the way you could use it as well. Like there's more than one option. But with the language, LLN, right? It's always been language literacy and numeracy. Now they're adding the D, digital. And I find that good and also slightly ironic, because in my world, I use the digital to conquer the LLN. So I don't see the D as a deficiency unless you know, you don't have it. But if you had it or you train it, then it would conquer the language and literacy and numeracy side. So it's kind of a fun one for me. That's a double-edged sword. Like, it needs to be there. I'm glad they've added it because it's really a current thing. But at the same time, if you've got good trainers and clever, snazzy people who like tips and tricks type training, then you can use the D to conquer the others. So it's kind of a fun one for me. But I think yeah, it's got to be a combination of everything. And if it comes down to, the biggest one is having a person to care and figure out the differences, so that whatever time you spend with the people or person, you're catering to those things. Having a combination of content, you know, static content, video content, self-service type stuff, using common language and plain English is probably my biggest one. Staying away from technical terms unless you're explaining technical terms in plain English. I think they're really the biggest ones for me, is make sure you have a cocktail, you know, a full-on combination of things to allow for the diversity between people.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's great advice. Can you share a success story where your initiatives significantly impacted neurodiverse individuals in their roles, or a particular case study you can think of?
Yeah, I think I'd probably reach back to my illiterate friends. I've had a few, right? Over the number of sites I've worked across, I've had guys, I think number of 7. In this case, all men, but it's not necessarily true, right? It's with women as well. I'm just in a male-dominated workplace, so it's just statistically, it's men a lot. But I've had 7 without a mobile phone. Like, I personally don't know how to do that. I feel like it might be really freeing. But somebody else that does all the admin, you know, does the paying of the bills and things. But there are people that don't have mobile phones still, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. That's their personal choice. But when they come to work and the workplace has decided it's going to go a bit more digital, it's going to get technology, it's going to throw tablets in the hands of the workforce, those people have a much bigger battle. So I've got a few illiterate humans over the time, and being able to teach them how the digital conquers your language, literacy, and numeracy stuff is the biggest joy, because they do come in the room like grumpy Smurf. Like, they are not happy. I don't want to be here. I don't want to learn this. Why do I have to learn? I'm never going to be able to learn this. I hate this. If I just stay quiet long enough, maybe it'll kick it to the bottom drawer and it'll all just blow over. And they come in with a really heavy attitude and their mood and everything, and watching them turn around and going, okay, yeah, I get it. I totally agree with them, right? From their point of view, I agree. The empathy has to be there. That, yeah, for them, this sucks. This really is going to hurt. It's a very big swing from one side to the other, and we're going to have to do it in one big leap because today's all I got. And so I'll identify with that and say, yeah, it is crap. And what are we going to do about it? So what I can do is I can teach you that this bit here can beat that bit there. And so that bit's easier, smarter, faster. And last time I checked, the way you would have grown up and the way I grew up is that you use the right tool for the job, right? And you measure twice, cut once. So I only want to do it once, and I want it to happen 3 other places for me. I want this thing to work for me, not me work for it. So if I can teach you that stuff, will you lean into this with me today? Will you have a crack at it? And they will say, oh, yeah? So I bet you I can prove that this thing is your friend, not your foe. Oh, yeah, righto. Yeah, come on, let's go. And so then I might teach them the read out loud function, like I mentioned, or the voice typing. I had a guy with hand tremors. So he was brilliant at what he did for a living every day, but trying to type on a keyboard, on a digital keyboard, which is just a flat screen, he had no chance. And I taught him to swipe type, right? So the first finger goes down on the letter, and then you move over the other letters. So your finger is planted, the shaking isn't a thing. And he was super excited. So most of the time, the wins I get are personal, and watching the shift from, I don't want to be here, I hate this thing, to, oh man, thanks so much. I had no idea. Oh, thanks so much. And then these guys are the ones that come back to me. Now, they are the hardest to train. They are the slowest to learn. I'm not going to lie, but they are my best users because they believe in a process and sticking to a process. So they kind of stick the landing better than anybody else, because they go, okay, it's this, then this, then this, then this, then this. Got it. So repetitive muscle memory. They get excited and curious, and it's like a guy, you know, going into the supermarket at 80 going, I just found alphabet spaghetti. They'll come back and they'll be like, hey, I just found this thing. Did you know it can do the thing? And I'm like, that's amazing. Of course, I knew it could do the thing, but I'm going to share in their joy. So the wins are individual, but the gain is universal, right? So each person that takes a step forward and gains a bit more information, then on the whole, let's say from a company point of view, if each of my workers or users gain some digital literacy and can put the right information in at the right place at the right time, then I get all that data and information. So I get to make better data-driven decisions in the business. Then everybody wins. But the initial win has to be personal and individual, because I need to flip that person from hating on this thing to, ooh, bit of curiosity here. Hey, this thing isn't so painful. Hey, this might actually be my friend. Hey, I don't have to be seen to be illiterate. I can look clever as heck now. Right? That switch, there's the win. That's the thing that gets me up in the morning and makes me want to do this again, because it's a tricky place to play, right? There's not enough emphasis given on front-end user training and digital support in the front-end user piece. Like the frontline workforce don't get a lot of support. We've got plenty of support for technology and break fix and IT, not so much for the frontline users. So it's a hard place to play, and I advocate pretty hard for the users, but the bigger the company, the harder it is to implement change or affect change or be heard. So sometimes she's a silent battle. But I get my wins from that. That's where I see the impact. And they go home and use that knowledge, right? So they go and do more interesting things with technology when they go home, because now they're into it. And I've seen that several times and I love it.
Yeah, that's so powerful what you said there. And it really is enlightening how you said, yeah, the D can actually solve the LLN. It's so amazing, and I hadn't thought of it before when you said it.
I think that's my weird sense of humor, because the first time I got told that, I was actually doing an OJT course, so I was a student for the first time in way too long, and he's saying, oh no, they're going to add the D for digital to LLN and it becomes LLND, and I went, but why? And he's like, what do you mean, but why? I'm like, because the D is the thing that beats the LLN. Like, that's the thing that's the, and he's like, oh. And I was like, isn't that how everybody thinks?
It's so amazing. And I think you're right in that it's good that it's there, because it's awareness, isn't it? Overall,
yeah.
We need to consider digital with language, literacy, numeracy. We need to actually put it together, because it is a fundamental skill we're all going to need in the workforce now. So
the good thing is that if you upskill and if you improve, like we improve language and literacy and numeracy, okay, cool. But if we improve digital learning, that then uplifts literacy, language, and numeracy. So if the focus for a business was on digital, they'd win. The individual people would win on all 4 counts. Just by uplifting one, you kind of drag the rest up with it. Whereas if I just work on language, that's not going to help me with digital.
No.
If I just work on my numeracy, that's not going to help me with digital. But digital is the one that if you work on that, it drags all of the skill level up on the others. So I feel like it's the master of the 4 now. If you can put the right emphasis on it.
Maybe it needs to be DLLN.
Maybe.
It.
Well, yeah, I think if we change the acronyms too much, we'll lose a few, right?
That's true.
I work in mining, which is acronym soup, so I don't think I want another acronym today.
Yeah, I totally agree. So just one final question. From your perspective, what steps can businesses take to create a more supportive and inclusive environment for people with LLND considerations?
Thank you for the D. Yeah, look, I think there's a couple of different things depending on the size of the business, right? This is going to be one of those things that is sliding scale. I'm working in a global mining company. So right now, for me, I would say that they need to put frontline support roles in, not in the tech break fix IT issue, bring up IT and get a ticket sort of stuff, but actually front end user side of it. For the last year, I've had 500 users in 4 departments, and I've crossed maybe 250 people there personally and made an impact on a good 100 of them. And that has made a difference. And you can see it statistically of our site versus another. I see it personally, obviously, because these people interact with me and I really love them. So having that frontline role that is a pivot point between technology and say a blue collar or mechanical minded frontline workforce, that's the way to go. But in a company this large, the biggest issue we've got is that the leaders who are the decision makers, right, are not directly connected to the daily struggle of the workforce. They understand the job, they understand what goes on, they understand who does what and the work out there. But what they're not seeing is the battle these people have with getting into digital and technology. And that can range from PCs and like everything just as basic as calendar management and emails through to being handed a tablet and being asked to use 20 something apps. So I think there's a couple of pieces. One is you need people like me in the workforce who care about the frontline workforce, can translate the technical into the plain English and find the benefits of it and show the perks. But the other piece is finding a way of communicating with the leaders for them to understand that the daily workforce actually personally, every single person struggles in some way, and that they need it. The catch there is it's a slow burn, right? You put in people like myself, and we can only affect change one person at a time or small groups at a time. You can't take everyone off the workforce and put them in a training room, so you can get them as you can get them. But I've had managers and leaders say to me, oh, they should know this. And that's a really tricky one, because if I handed that person a tablet today and said, okay, cool, so set up your home screen with all the apps that are useful, there's 70 there, but only 20 you need. And tell me which apps to use for what, when, and how to navigate those screens. They couldn't do it, but because they drive a desk and because they are digital already, and it's second nature and everyday work for them, it seems normal. So it's normalized in their brain. Well, if I know it, then they know it. But for the company side of it, the larger company side of it, if the managers and leaders and superintendents and even GMs understood the daily grind and the battle, and then they could sing up on behalf of the workforce, if they were more connected to the struggle of the workforce, then you would have more support from them. The catch is it's a slow burn because it's slow learning. You don't see an immediate improvement overall. So it's not some big shiny star you can go, hey, we did the digital learning thing and look how amazing we are. It's like, no, over the next 12 months or 18 months, you're going to see an improvement and then a culture shift and then a wave and momentum, and everybody gets on deck and new starters come in to a workforce that already has that mentality and they're already working. Okay, cool. You actually have to create that wave. Like it has to be a raw, not a trickle to get that momentum up. And the managers and the superintendents are the critical to that. And because they're not directly connected to it every day, they don't see it as a struggle. They just assume that people should be able to know the thing or do the thing. But if I handed them that technology, they couldn't do it themselves. So connecting those levels and getting an understanding of exactly what this looks like for all levels and getting the care from that level to speak up on behalf of the workforce, that would be a huge piece. And that's valid for any business of any size, right? But the smaller businesses, the thing they can do is they can put in something like maybe a consulting stuff, right? You don't want to put in a full-time role. You don't have the budget for that or the people. And you can do what I used to do for the trade companies. I used to offer them a tips and tricks session. So the deal was I'd spend an hour with every person in their employment, and that 1 hour was just tailored to whoever was in front of me, and we would just do stuff on their computer, and it would be setting up their taskbar and teaching them some tips and tricks in Outlook and whatever was going to make them work easier, smarter, faster, forever. You could teach them in the 1 hour and they'll get the benefit ongoing of that. And therefore the business would get an ongoing benefit from that employee being more efficient. And psychologically, if something is easier to do, you're a little happier at work, right? And so if you're not doing it the hard way the whole time, you can actually feel better yourself, and therefore your employment is good. So if you're a small company, I'd say get a consultant in that can help you with digital literacy and tell them that's the focus you want. And it could be very specific to a software that you've got, or it could be more holistic to get their general digital skills up, which I think is more value. It encourages curiosity and shows care and makes you feel better at work. And then all the way up to the larger companies where they would actually need to put roles in specifically for it, design that way of working, and then allow that to be the slow burn, know that it's going to be that way, and allow that to be the long-term win. because no matter which way you go, we're all going digital more and more and more and more. We've got now generative AI and all these things coming into play, and they're all great tools. But if you don't know enough about digital, how the heck are you going to lean into AI, right? How can you use AI to your benefit if you don't know how to do calendar management? Yeah, okay, so let's just get the basics right and then get the general skill level up overall. And I think no company I've seen yet has ever had a piece for digital literacy. For PCs, tablets, phones, the whole lot. I've seen a couple of sites give a person that mandate for a few months to just get around a handful of people. But I really think if you were to build it properly, you would design a role for that, you would design a structure for that, and you would go, right, here's the content we're going to build before we begin. Here's the one-on-ones we're going to use. Here's what we're going to issue before and after. We're going to use like Microsoft Bookings to automate the whole bookings and calendar stuff. And we're going to use digital to learn digital. And I emphasize that a lot every day, is that I issue links to videos. I don't go and teach them how to do it after I've seen them. I go and make them learn it on digital. So they're now learning about digital on digital in an app, watching a video via a link that they literally 2 days ago had no idea how to open up Teams or open up this or click on a link and watch a video. And now they're doing all of it. And they're actually learning about doing something else in an app while using another app. So they've actually it's kind of like this circle. If you can just get them to do the one thing once, then they start leaning into digital, whether they know it or not, because they need that help. So, I've got to click on the link in the email, which opens up the thing. Sweet. You're just now learning about digital on digital. Well done. Without having the care and the people and the process for that, you're not going to have it. So you can either do it with a consultant or you can do it as something more holistic and sort of structured and built into the business, right? And for something like this, where it's a global mining company, it needs to be built into the business, because whatever the next digital initiative is, you need those people who have a standardized way of working who can roll out that next digital initiative. So let's start with digital literacy. Cool. And now let's pick an initiative, whether it be work management or safety or whatever it might be, or a new software, and throw that through the same people, right? And through the same process. So we learn the same way. And we just pick a new topic, whatever the new technology is. That goes through those people too. And they become the pivot point between technology and the frontline workforce, who are more mechanically minded, I guess.